Episode 17 with RJ Ledesma of Mercato Centrale.
You're listening to Kendrick Loves to Brand, the branding podcast featuring stories and lessons from entrepreneurs and brand builders so you can get inspiration, insights, strategies, and tactics as you create your own game-changing brand. Welcome to the show, RJ.
Thanks so much for having me, Kendrick.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. How do I introduce RJ? My God, it's a man of many hats, as your website literally say. How do you normally introduce yourself? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're a host, wedding and events.
Well, it's also, I sort of say it's a multi-hyphenated lifestyle. And I guess when you say entrepreneur, it sort of encompasses all these different things that I do. Or what people nowadays they call it ikigai, diba? Something that fulfills your where purpose, passion, business all meet. Number one, I'm a host. So I've been hosting since I was a small boy. For those who even remember, or those even listening to the podcast, right? If you remember, June Keithley show, The Children's Hour, which used to come out on Channel 4. And I've been hosting since I was a very young boy, and I've kept at it for many, many years. So now I do it professionally. So I'm an events, corporate, wedding, lifestyle host, TV host at the same time. So I host a show right now on One News / Bloomberg TV called Bright Ideas. That's my most current hosting, where I get to interview a lot of tech startup companies, and it's been a good run over there because I've learned so much about the startup industry, and I've been able to reuse those principles for my own business. And I also do a show called Philippine Realty TV on CNN Philippines because my real background, my real passion, my family business is for real estate development. So I also host that show, and because of my experience in hosting, I've had the opportunity to be awarded 3 times Best Male MC for the Aliw Awards, and this year, next week, I'll be getting my Hall of Fame award for the Aliw Awards. So host is one hat that I wear. A hat that I used to wear more actively a few years ago was that of a writer. So I'm a creative nonfiction writer, and I used to write a fairly regular column for the Philippine Startup was for the past 10 years. It was called Pogi from a Parallel Universe. And from that column, I produced, I was able to print 6 books. 3 of which became National Book Awards finalists. And I'm also a 2014 UP National Writers Fellow and a 1994 Silliman University Writing Fellow as well. And I used to also edit, I was the editor-in-chief of the late lamented Manual magazine, which was printed before by Mega Publishing, and also Uno magazine. So that was one background which I used to wear. And then I'm also, currently I wear the hat of an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, I put up, the business people might be most familiar with is Mercato Centrale. Mercato is a food market. Maybe that's the most, I guess that's the best consumer way to explain it, consumer-friendly way to explain it. It's a night food market, which we have currently in BGC, in Ayala Malls Manila Bay, and Ayala Malls Glorieta. But really what we've pivoted the business model of Mercato into is from a food market into a small food business incubator, meaning there's a B2B business, meaning our internal customers are actually our vendors, recruiting vendors, and as we recruit vendors, we have to be the best in vendor acquisition, and have them join the market. They join the market, they get incubated, they get mentored, and the successful vendors, or those whom we see have the potential, we scale them up to becoming to join our food hall, which we're opening up next year in Avida, in BGC. It's a condo, Avida Verita in BGC. Then eventually, if they're very, very good, then we scale them up even further to becoming a standalone restaurant. So it's a whole sort of ecosystem which we've built to help really institutionalize finding, vetting, growing small food vendors until they're able to graduate. So that's one business which we run. The other one is called EnterPH. It's a one-stop consultancy firm that helps foreign businesses offshore or outsource their businesses to the Philippines, because we saw the opportunity there, that many foreign businesses want to take advantage of the good growth rate of the Philippines, the young median age, which is about 23 years old, which is right now we are in the sort of golden demographic dividend, and also our English language skills, our relatively good skills when it comes to education, engineering, architecture. So we've got people we've got a lot of foreign companies who want to take advantage of that one and help grow the Philippines. But our ease of doing business is not as great as the other countries. So there needs to be somebody to help them through the process, which is what EnterPH does. And then I also run a business called, I co-founded a business called easyfranchise.com. And what Easy Franchise does is that it's sort of like the one-stop shop for franchising. But to make that even clearer, it is a business that connects franchise owners. Primarily, it is a business that connects franchise owners with franchise investors, so franchisors with franchisees. So, for example, there's no one place where you can find, I want to invest in a potato corner, I want to invest in a laundry business or a water refilling business, and there is no place that consolidates all that information. Then they can come to Easy Franchise online, and when they go there, if also the other pain point which they have is that I want to run a business, I want to invest in a franchise business, but I don't have anybody who can run the business. We have a separate service which helps manage the franchise business for them. So that's what we do. So that's another one that we have as well. So it's currently right now the three things on my plate, which are a lot on my plate actually, are Mercato Centrale and EnterPH and Easy Franchise. And from the outside, people might not see the connections, but thematically in my head, all those businesses can complement each other, and there are places where they synergize, where they complement, where I'm able to use resources from one and use them for the other business as well.
Because like when you mentioned that you'll help concepts in Mercato scale up, you can do that through Easy Franchise.
Yeah, exactly. So Easy Franchise, we can scale up through them. And also, if they need incorporation requirements, then EnterPH can take care of those incorporation requirements for them as well. If they need to go to other countries, then EnterPH can also help them in that regard. So all these sort of things, they sort of work together for me.
So how did you get started with all of this? Like from the very start, you mentioned you've been hosting since you were young. Like how did you get into that? And then how did that lead up to being an entrepreneur, starting Mercato?
I guess it comes from growing up in an entrepreneurial family. So we grew up in my dad also an entrepreneur. He was a real estate developer. You're raised always to think, what are the opportunities which are abound there. I often describe it when I give my talk, and when I give talks on entrepreneurship, and people ask me, can an entrepreneur be trained? Can an entrepreneur is born? I often say that it's really developing that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And entrepreneurial mindset just means that it's a way of looking at the world, meaning that, for example, when you travel and you travel, let's say, like me, I wear glasses, right? I travel and I don't wear glasses, and I travel. I can't appreciate the items or the tourist attractions very clearly because I can't see too well. But if I put on my glasses, then I can see things with clarity, with sharpness, right? So it's the same thing like being an entrepreneur. In this sense, is when you travel or when you go anywhere, when you can look at things, you can look at things normally like a regular person, or you can put on your entrepreneurial lens so that opportunities become sharper or clearer, diba? So that's why oftentimes when we travel abroad, that's when we get the best ideas, because we get to, if we're looking at it with our entrepreneurial lens, then we get to see things sharper, clearer. And you know, my dad, even when we were younger, you know, that was sort of like the training through osmosis that we got from him of looking at these different opportunities. When it came to hosting, my mom was the one who kept on motivating me to host. So, you know, even as younger, grade 2, grade 3, I would join the mga elocution contest, talumpatian, and all these different things. So, and then debate. As my career progressed in public speaking, so that really refined my public speaking skills.
Did it come naturally to you, like in hosting, like?
Well, I guess it came over years of training. You know, first was, you know, it was first developing, I guess, stage presence and showmanship. So, you know, when it came to that one, I would do a lot of hosting and participating in this elocution contest in school, and I would get trained to do that. And then after that was done, I think when I was about 13, I joined Repertory Philippines in those workshops. I got to do a couple of stage plays. So it sort of developed that showmanship and stage presence type of skill. And then when that was done, when I got to college, I became very active. In fact, I became the president of the Debate Society of LaSalle. And I had several recognitions in it's called Test Debater in the Australasian Debating Championship. So, parang you choose from Asia people who are exemplars of, you know, good debating. But I learned a lot about debating and spontaneous speaking and humor and all these different things as a speaker. So I gained a lot of those different skill sets over the years. And of course, I'm also a writer. So at the same time, you know, as a writer, you have to know how to ask questions about things. And so, you know, sort of all those different things combined. And then as I got older, you know, I've always had the opportunity to host shows. So in college, I was hosting a show called Teen Talk from 1993 to 1995. And then the only hiatus I took from hosting was when I went corporate. I worked for Procter & Gamble for several years. And then when I resigned, I went back doing some TV work for ABS, and then did my master's in MIT, came back, and then, you know, there were different shows over the years. I've been hosting many different shows over the years, which keeps you sharp. So, and eventually,
how did you get to wedding hosting?
Well, wedding hosting came because, you know, people would ask me to host their weddings, and then eventually, one of the weddings which I did host was the wedding of my sister. I think it was about 2004, 2005, and the person who was the wedding organizer was Rita Neri, who's right now the premier wedding events organizer in the country. And when I did that wedding for her, it was funny because I was pretty drunk, and we were in Baguio, but, you know, people were all laughing. I don't know if they were laughing at me or laughing at the jokes. And she said, "Hey, you know, you've got the potential to be a host." So she started hiring me to do weddings, and eventually. I started hiring to do more weddings, and that's really what started off my career as being a wedding host.
So how do you balance your time now? Like, you have these 3 companies, you're also doing hosting. Like, how do you manage to put it all together?
I'd like to say that I have several clones waiting for me upstairs in my bedroom, but it's really because I think that the first thing I look at is that, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. And when I say that I'm an entrepreneur, that means that, you know, I'm in control of my life and my schedule. It's not a 9-to-5 job where I have to report to the office and I have to write up reports and everything else. Diba? There was a conscious decision to become an entrepreneur so that I could make these sort of decisions where I could spend time with the family, I could choose time, I could choose my time. But of course, like from hosting, I cannot choose my time there. But I mean, I can choose to be a host, and I can choose to meet my clients when we're both comfortable. So it's really that as an entrepreneur, you get to control your schedule, and the difference here is that when you own the business, and I'm sure people who own businesses can relate, is that, you know, it's not like, it doesn't feel like you're working when you're an entrepreneur. It feels like you're parang naglalaro ka lang, or it's like you're
having fun.
You're having fun. You're doing what you want to do. So that's the thing about it. And my secretary is very good at already balancing off the schedules because she controls the whole thing. She sees, oh, this is my hosting, these are my taping days,
and then all the meetings for
the meetings. So she knows, so they know how to set those things around. And because I'm the boss, they can set meetings around my availability. So those are how things work. So that's how I'm able to manage those schedules. And of course, what's very important for me is. In my head, I mean, my priorities really are, number one, it's faith. Number two, it's family. Number three, it's work. And number three, it's fitness. I mean, those are the things that I think in my life, I have the only things I could manage. Like, I had to give up some things. I love writing. And the thing is, I couldn't continue it on a regular basis because it took too much time away already from my family. And because of the mind space for thinking about family and also about business was not there because it had, because creative thinking takes a lot of time for me as far as I'm concerned, and so I couldn't do that one. And as I got older, I realized that fitness had to start becoming a bigger concern because I wouldn't be able to manage all these things if I couldn't maintain a certain level of fitness anymore to keep up with my resistance, my ability to stay focused.
So what do you do for fitness?
Well, funny thing is, a couple of years ago, maybe about 14, 15 years ago, I actually got certified to be an Ashtanga yoga practitioner because I was practicing Ashtanga yoga. And so I didn't have to pay for classes anymore. I just said, I'll become a teacher na lang instead. I got certified. And I was actually an ovo-lacto vegetarian for 10 years. It meant that I didn't eat meat and fish, but I would have eggs and cheese and vegetables. But I've since modified my diet since then. But right now, it's a combination of doing a diet, supplements, and exercise. I actually follow a diet from friends of mine who work with Unicity, but it's not a. I follow a certain diet, supplement, and exercise regimen from a friend who's used Unicity supplements as a basis to create a whole fitness program, and it's been very, very good for me. I've lost about 15 pounds and sustained it. And then there's a physique and fitness building program which they had. So every day there's a accessory, interval, Tabata workout, and I combine that with a yoga. So I just alternate among all of them because sometimes those workouts you can't do them in the morning, you have to do them late at night, you have to squeeze them in. So nice the workout, you can do it in sort of bite-sized, but it's been very, very good for me. Nice. So so those are the sort of things I look at na how I try to stay fit. And really like like when I talk about sacrifices, I don't have much time to really hang out anymore or hang out with friends or do this lot of socials which I used to do in the past. But because that's just what it is right now. Right now, I'd rather, if I have free time, I'll spend time with my kids or my family.
Nice. So, sir, let's talk about Mercato more. How did that come about? Like, how did you and Vanessa identify that opportunity?
Yeah. Okay. So, I often talk about when we travel. When I do go negosyo and we do mentoring, people often ask us the question of what business is good to put up. So the people are very curious, and it's nice. That's their first step towards entrepreneurship. But I often tell them, if you ask that question, I think you're getting off on the wrong foot. Because if you show up to many of these startup competitions where you've got venture capitalists from all over the world asking you questions, the first question that they ask you when you're putting up a startup or any business is that, what problem is your startup trying to solve? Or what problem are you trying to solve? And I guess that's always the starting point for all the businesses which I put up, whether it is Mercato, whether it is Enterpage, whether it is Easy Franchise. And for the other businesses in the future, which I'll put up, are all based on that sort of thinking when it comes to business. And so for Mercato, I often say that, what problem am I trying to solve? Because problems for us are what we call pain points, right? Or irritations. And you need to turn your irritation into inspiration for doing business, or you turn your pain points into business opportunities. Because if something bothers me, it also bothers you. And if it bothers both of us, or must bother a lot of people, and if you solve it, that's where the money lies, right? Or that's where the business model lies. And that's where my ikigai lies, in solving pain points. So for us, the first irritation was that, when we would travel when we had our honeymoon in Italy, we went to the Mercato Centrale in Florence, Italy, and my wife really enjoyed the experience. And so she liked getting to meet the vendors. It was a nice, nice outdoor place. She'd love to go there as an attraction in itself. And she said, when you put up on Mercato Centrale in the Philippines, and I was laughing at the time, sabi ko, we do something like this one. This is not, I didn't think it was possible at the time. So we sort of parked that idea in our head. And the second thing that also occurred to us was, as a journalist, as a writer, I would often get sent to places like, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand. And whenever we visit those places, the first place that they would often bring you to in terms of a tour organizer would be to the food markets. And whenever I'd be brought there, you had this, you're a bit torn because, you enjoyed the experience. But at the same time, you're going, how come there's no equivalent here in the Philippines? Because at a glance, you can see that there's a growing number of, mushrooming number of call center people, BPO people who work late at night. And at the same time, there's no place in the country where a lot of, where you can bring your balikbayans or foreigners, where there's an equivalent night food market. So that really was sort of like the genesis of what brought Mercato together in the first place. And here's the interesting thing for the people listening. Mercato Centrale in Florence, Italy, or even Mercato Centrale in Italy is like hundreds of years old, right? Yeah. And Mercato Centrale in the Philippines is about 9 years old. But we own the social media assets of
Mercato
Centrale. We own Mercato Centrale in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter because we were first to claim it online. So very important, if you've got a good business idea, be the first to claim that idea before somebody else can pick it up. So we were very lucky that we were the ones who thought of it earlier on to pick up that name. So anyway, we started the market, and what we sort of started off with was with a morning market, interestingly enough, back in 2010. And when we started off that market at the time, it was actually a morning market because the sort of pain point we were trying to address was, for example, we were benchmarking first against the Salcedo and Legazpi markets, thinking that, okay, number one, there's some people who can't join those markets in time, and number two, they have no aircon.
Yeah.
So that was our first thing. It was an air-conditioned morning market in BGC, which is another central location. So that's how the market there started off. And it did fairly well at the start. And then eventually we realized that, at the time, the only other market, there was a night market at the time which was being done in Ortigas. And we said, and it wasn't, hindi pa uso eh. It wasn't popular yet at the time. So we said, why don't we try doing a night food market? Because there was a sort of sentiment that, the morning market would plateau in terms of the number of people who could actually come. Yeah. Limited because of the limited hours that you had. So we tried that we were doing a day market, we tried a night market. And at that time, when we did the night market, pahirapan pa yan eh. It was hard to get the vendors to actually join the night market because they didn't see the value. They said, who's going to go to a night market? Who's going to go to a night market at the time? And what happened was that we could only get maybe 10 out of 50 to actually come on board and join us. But we had about maybe the first night, maybe about 3,000 to 5,000 people came to the night market. And we said, oh wait, wow, this is an opportunity for us to scale this market. And eventually, from our first location, which was very near the residential area of in BGC, we moved to a farther area, and the morning market didn't pan out in that farther area. So eventually, everything transitioned to becoming a night market, and it thrived as a night food market, and that's really the model of where we are right now.
What were some of the early challenges that you guys had to face?
Well, I guess really after developing the traction for the market. It's that there were a lot of copycat vendors who would join because they think, I often tell people sometimes, people never see the effort that you put into doing your business. They just see the success. So they'll copy you from the success standpoint and move further from there. And sometimes it's difficult for you to catch up with your competition or to run after them because you have a lot of emotional baggage from setting up the business in the first place. And like over the years, there's been a lot of, I guess, people who who think it's easy to who copy the market. That's okay. They see from the outset. Oh, so this is how they do it. So let's do the same thing. So that's one thing, and in 2016-17, what started to peak were people who saw the pain points of the Mercato market, which was that we like what you're doing in Mercato, where you've got this selection of different vendors, but it's not being done every day. What we could do in our own backyard and with the same sort of vibe. And eventually the food parks started emerging. And at one point, I guess in 2018 or 19, they peaked at 100 plus food parks around the country. And that let us do our own soul searching to realize, what can we as one market do with all these other competitors who are out there. And we realized that really, when we looked at our own, their pain points and our pain points and reviewed our business model, we thought to ourselves, parang, what are we good at? I think what we're good at is actually doing vetting, incubating, mentoring good businesses to come out of the market. Because I think I can say that we have got some of the best. I mean, many concepts have actually evolved and graduated from us and have become successful as a result of being Mercato, not only because they got trained, but because they got the exposure, they got the foot traffic, they got the marketing that they needed to be able to scale there. So I realized our job is not just to be a food market, but really I think what we are is we're an incubator for new food concepts, and that's where we really start to say that. So that's what we talk about. We're not just a food market. Our advocacy is to be a food business incubator, and I picked up this idea from basically doing my show on Bright Ideas, because on Bright Ideas, all I would do is I would talk to startup companies, and as I would talk to startup companies, I would I found that many of them would go to incubators. Why would they go to incubators? Because incubators are areas where basically I might have some coding skill, or I might have some idea of a startup, but other skill sets are not quite there. From marketing. Exactly. All the skill sets are not there. Finance, marketing, operations, sales, coding, all these different things. So they go there, and their chances for success are much higher once they're done. In the Philippines, I think in the first year alone, 66% of businesses, which are restaurants, actually fail. And it's not because the food isn't good, but because maybe the other elements of the business aren't quite up to par yet. Marketing, finance, sales, operations, di ba? And I've seen in my market as well, diba? Food, really good food, but I go, why aren't you doing well?
What happened to that?
Well, because maybe the marketing wasn't quite there, or they don't want to, they're not there selling their product. So, so I realized, so what we have to do is, and that's how innovation often works. You can take a business model from another existing industry and bring it to your own. So, I took what I learned from the tech industry and brought that into the food industry. And right now, what Mercato is building is we're called a restaurant business network together with Globe My Business, where we've identified the different pain points in the food entrepreneur's journey, where we try to address those pain points, because we feel if we address those pain points of theirs, digital marketing, microfinance, all these different things, we can upscale them, or at least make them successful as a viable business. We also have a set of workshops. We do workshops, we do trainings, we do all these different engagements, so we can help incubate more and more concepts to become successful.
And these workshops, these training are only exclusively available for Mercato?
No, they're open to all, because we have seminars for our vendors. We have people who are aspiring food vendors. In other words, we just want to calibrate all their experiences, so when they come to the market, they will have a fair fighting chance to do good. Not just from a market, but in general, because what I really see the market as is a microcosm of you doing business outside, right? I mean, if you can't survive here, you're not going to survive outside. That's it. Because people often think, oh, this is the best thing I've ever had. But if you don't put it out there, see how you can tweak it further. How can you make it more market friendly? How do you know that that's really the case? Diba?
So what you're doing is very different in the sense that you're not necessarily, as a sort of landlord in a way, diba, for Mercato.
Well, that's one business model that you have, right?
But what you're doing is you're not necessarily looking to keep them with you forever, diba? Parang you're empowering them to graduate.
We want them to graduate because, and we want to be part of their success moving upwards, because many of them also are not financially or business savvy, capable of scaling further. But we are. So we'd rather we can work together with them.
So when you say that, do you also invest in some of these concepts?
That's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing for those that move up. If they choose to work with us, we can invest in them because we have the network already. We know the people who can invest in them. We have the venues where they can come into, so we can help scale them up because we just all stick to what we're good at in terms of core competence. If it's the entrepreneur who put up the business, his core competence is making sure that his recipes are good, the quality is good, that he's coming up with newer concepts. My job is to expand his locations, to improve his operations. And that way, we focus both on the skill sets that we are good at.
So what are some of the concepts that have been able to graduate from Mercato?
Well, there's been a lot so far. I mean, you've got Mary Moo, Manas Chicken, Brasas, Baways, Geno's, Sunrise Buckets. You have the more popular one right now is Thai Mango. You've got Shawarma Bros. There's been so many concepts that sometimes I can't even remember all of the different ones who actually graduated from Mercato. And but for all those who've graduated, there's still many others who could have become successful, but they didn't have those elements in place. Not everything was in place for them. So what we want to do is make sure that we put all these things into place for people, so we're able to help them scale better. Because if they do good, we do good as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we've developed a very strong and aggressive digital inbound marketing strategy to be able to do better vendor acquisition, because we realize that that's a key strategic driver of business, that we get good vendors to come in. So you do that through digital marketing, but very good targeted marketing. You do it through workshops, you do it through incubation, you do it through mentorships, because that's the best way to get business.
Correct. As an entrepreneur, what do you think is your biggest strength, or what makes you unique as an entrepreneur?
I think that it's the realization that number one, what I'm very good at is sort of like seeing a bigger picture and putting together the pieces, or meeting different people. I'm a people person, and I think I'm not well connected in the sense that I've been involved in many different industries, and I can, like for Enter PH, my skill set is when people ask me, can you put me in touch with this person? I can find a way to get to that person. I guess what's important for me is that I get to see the bigger picture and come up with that business idea, because I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. I'm not probably the best manager, and I don't see management as my strength per se, but rather being the person who can say, let me put together this idea, let me put together all the elements into place, and once it's there, let me find somebody who can run it, so I can step out and then think of something else again to do. And when I do that one, all these businesses have a relationship to each other,
yeah.
which people don't realize also as well. And also that I'm good at building good relationships with partners. I guess that's what's key as well, because I've realized over the years doing businesses with partners, having partners, having to separate ways with other partners, is that what's key is that what I've learned really right now is that it's important to have partners with whom you have shared values in terms of business and in life and in faith, because that way it's easier to move ahead, because there's a certain level of trust on both your parts. That I know that you're working hard.
Yeah.
I trust that you have our company's best interest at heart. I trust that if I make a decision, it's something that you and I would agree with, even if we didn't talk about it. I mean, those type of things. That's what's key for us.
So how, in your experience though, like with Mercato, like how did that learning come about? Because you have a new partner, si Jomag, who came in. So when you say like you had to learn these things, is it through experience? Did you ever have like a partnership that didn't go
well? Through experience now. No, it's just that, like for example, we with Jomag coming into the picture, we think that it was a great partnership fit for us, because Jomag, as you know, is the co-founder of Potato Corner. Yeah. He's a really great multi-awarded entrepreneur, and when he came in, it's not a far stretch to think that after he came in, things really improved, because in 2-3 years after he became our partner, we won 3 back-to-back awards when it came to SME of the Year, Asia CEO Awards, SME of the Year, Asia Leaders Awards, SME Excellence in
The
Innovation.
awards are all this year, right?
Yeah, all this year, Excellence in Innovation with the ASEAN Business Awards. It's really because it's more of the mindsetting, I guess, that was brought into place, and then the strategic thinking which was brought, and of course the motivation, inspiration to do these businesses. And call it divine intervention, but moving forward, the other businesses which we've put up have been people of very aligned in terms of the sort of thinking that we have. My wife often tells me, RJ, when you're out there, I often pray that you meet really good people. And I have to say right now that the track record of the people who I've been meeting to join me as the investment team, as the operations team, as the tech team, wow! I mean, these are really good people I'll be working with in the future. And many of them, the funny thing is, I met many of them because of my hosting jobs, not because of Enter PH or
Mercato.
Easy Franchise. I met them because I'm their wedding host or the host of their wedding anniversary. The funny thing is, like, next year I'll be working together with David Almirol of Multisys. Multisys is the technology company, innovation company of the year in the Asia CEO Awards. Multisys is a software development company, and it's been doing fantastic. It was just MVP just invested 45% in the company for 2 billion pesos.
Wow.
And I actually met him because I hosted his wedding in Baguio. But during the time that we were preparing, I was telling him what I did, and he was a bit interested. Sabi niya, let's meet after you're done. And then the funny thing is, we both won in the same Asia CEO Awards. So then he came over, he discussed my idea. He said, great. And now we'll be doing a partnership moving forward to develop a B2B and B2C app for Mercato. The B2B app is to connect restaurant suppliers to restaurant food owners, and then the second app is to connect small food business owners, like if you make cupcakes or you make pastries or whatever.
You can supply to bigger.
No, you can supply to bigger, but you can also supply to end consumers at the same. You can also supply to end consumers at the same time. And he's got a payment platform ready for that. He's got a logistics platform ready for that one. So it's a great partnership, and at the same time, it still fulfills what we do in Mercato, which is incubator.
Yeah,
we're still incubator. We're just helping now more people now, but using the same sort of platform to grow people.
So when is this app launching?
Next year, we're working on it right now. So when we're done, it's going to be a fantastic app.
Nice.
But see, that's like that. And these are things you've learned as you do that. I mean, it's a combination of it. I learned from Mercato, from Enter PH, from doing the show, and all these ideas just sort of come together. And because I've done it, and I at least I built some sort of credibility runway in terms of credibility. I know who to contact so that I can put them all on board, and we can run this business much better, and we help more people also at the same time.
Nice. Congratulations on all the awards this year. As an entrepreneur, like you really can't avoid having struggles, diba?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever experienced self-doubt?
All the time. I mean, if people talk about that roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, I mean, that happens with us. I mean, there are times when the company was virtually, what's happening to our financial statements were in the red, or I often tell people, there were times that I've had to close down markets. We've opened markets, we've closed them the next day because they didn't do well. One thing that sticks very clearly in my mind was, I think a few years ago, when we ran the market, there was very strong rain, and one of our tents that we had just fully paid off collapsed because of the weight of the rainwater, and things we had to operate the market the following week. So what would we do? And when that happened, we had to find a way, even if we were operating at a loss, because there were people who were relying on us for their livelihood. So there's so many losses that we've had along the way. But I think the way to look at it is this way. I've been a Global Business Ambassador for a few years now, and one time when they had said online, parang on their page, Facebook page, that they got RJ Ledesma. Somebody said on that page, why did you get him? Because he put up a Mercato here in Cagayan de Oro, and it didn't work. It failed. And I was surprised because this person seems to want to make me feel bad about closing down the market. I said, then he's not an entrepreneur, because number one is when you fail in business, it's not failing in life. It's failing in business. And it's not. Unless you want to go to your ego, I mean, then it's up to you. That's when you feel bad about it. But of course, as a person, you feel bad that you have to close the market, but it's a business decision you have to make. But I think it's more important to realize that all entrepreneurs I know who are successful have failed in the past. There's none who's become successful the first time around.
Yeah.
And they often they tell their stories proudly of their failure because they wear their failure like it's a badge of honor. Yeah. The idea is that when you fail, failure is an investment in your learning.
Yeah.
That's what I often tell them. Like in the market, when there are new vendors coming there, they join and they don't do well. Sabi ko, don't worry about. I mean, of course they're putting money, so it's different, the instinct. But parang think of it as you're investing in the understanding of how to do your business better.
It's tuition fee, basically.
Tuition fee lang ba? Tuition fee yan, di ba? Hindi yan nawala. Hindi yan nawala, natuto ka eh. Because I've closed down 15, maybe 20 markets of Mercato. But because of closing those markets, we've learned how to do them much better. That the markets that are existing right now are the result of what we've learned from the past steps of failure. So it's fail fast, fail forward mentality. And failures are good because it goes to it helps build your resilience and your grit because dapat malakas yung loob mo sa when moving forward. You're gonna fail I mean, you can't be onion skinned about it It's just that when you calculate your loss, just know when to quit. Like if the metrics tell you right now it's time to quit na, if it's time to quit, then it's okay. Quit and then learn na where you can from over there. But useless to feel bad about it diba? Useless to dwell on it because you dwell on it pa, that occupies mind space
Correct.
Don't let it occupy mind space anymore. Okay, natuto ka na. Then the emotional part, tanggalin mo ng konti and then you move forward from there.
So when you're in the midst of, let's say, your toughest adversity in running Mercato, like how would you describe your self-talk? Like how do you like manage your head space to stay positive, to just focus on solving the problem basically?
Well, prayers are good. Prayers are a very good indication, and I mean what they say, you say God is good all the time. So there must have been a reason for this particular thing to have happened to us. And that coupled with the idea of a growth mindset, not yet there, right? Not yet. You say it's not yet there, and you just say, okay, this is a learning. It's a learning. So let's figure out from there. Let's move ahead because it happens. It happens, and you can't dwell on it too long, and then just move ahead.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs, like people who are just starting out, what based on all your years of experience?
At the start of it's really you have to, if they are working for a company, and then they want to get into this one, the difference between working for a company and being in your own business is that it's the sort of hunger mentality which you have. Because if you're working for a company, it's that sort of 9 to 5 mentality which you have. Clock in 5, okay, that's it. I can do whatever I want after. So, that's fine. And sometimes you can work for a very good company, but it's still golden handcuffs, diba? Like you're there, but you can't leave because the salary is so good. But your salary will plateau, your time is still not. You're still beholden to your company for your time, right? But then, I left a lucrative career in brand management and became an entrepreneur because I wanted to become hungry. My dad also was employed before for a company, but he left, and that was because he also wanted to. He sold insurance because he wanted to be hungry to see how it's like to do this type of things. So I chose to do that one because I want to learn to stay hungry for opportunity. Like when I was starting to doing hosting for weddings. I mean, I could have been arrogant and said, I used to do TV host, diba? I do wedding hostings, diba? But it's the hunger for the opportunity and to learn how to scout and how to run after opportunities. Parang, because unlike you're getting salary regularly, you have to fight for your salary. You have to really go for that opportunity. And one of the best things I learned was really from David Lee Chu. I remember I once asked him, you want to sell this property for me? It's part of my family business. It's not a big property. It's just a small one, but might have even fit into your portfolio. And he said to me, RJ, if it moves, we'll kill it. And I said, when I thought about it, that's nice. If it moves, we'll kill it. Ibig sabihin, whether big or small yung opportunity, tatanggapin niya, he'll find a way. Because that's where you learn the grit. That's where you learn the resilience. That's where you learn hustle, diba? So, until now, I'm still the same kind of mentality. But it's hard for me to say no to opportunities when they come about because I was taught a hustle mentality, diba? To just get these opportunities when they come to you because that's where you learn to get much better. And And I think it's really, pay your tuition fee in terms of, making the mistakes right now. It's okay to make the mistakes, but you've got to do them. And also that whatever you're doing right now, keep a growth mindset in the sense that, when you're doing something, it means that, this might not be the final version of your business. This is just the first iteration of many businesses which you'll come up with. Because the Mercato we have right now, it's not the Mercato that we started out with when we conceptualized it. It's much better now when we've refined that business model where people are going, wow, so that's what you're doing? I want to sign on board, di ba? Before, kaya kitang kopyahin di ba? It's that easy lang pala. But now they're going, wow, you've built something that's pretty amazing, and it's helping a lot of people. Can we come on board? But it took time for us to iterate and come up with that business model. It took exposure, it took going out, it took going failure, it took a lot of learning to get where we are right now. And and it's always that wear that entrepreneurial mindset, and always be out there to look for problems which you can solve. And the thing is with solving problems, because we live in a developing country, there are so many problems which we can solve. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is that we've grown so manhid, diba? We've grown so used to them that we can't see them, but there are problems in finance, in real estate, in logistics, in transportation, so many different things. I think that's what people don't realize when they look at why are all these VCs looking at the Philippines right now and at our startups. What they're looking for in our startups are businesses which can scale outside of the Philippine setting, but it works here. So there are remittance type, Ayana, there's Acudim. These are startup companies whose business models are not just applicable in a developing country like ours, but also applicable in other developing countries with similar demographic profiles across the region, not just in Asia, maybe also in Africa, in South America. And as you see me develop my own startups or tech solutions inside Mercato, whether it's the Mercato ecosystem, whether it's our Mercato B2B, B2C app, these are also things which can be reapplicable, not just in the Philippines, but also in other geographies as well.
Nice. You mentioned a couple of names, your dad and David Lee Chu. Did you have like a mentor when you were starting out?
When it came to business, I think my primary mentor really is my dad in terms of the entrepreneurial thinking, or just the gut alone. I mean, kita ko gut alone, he can do things like that one. And working for P&G was a sort of a good training for me as well, because that was the quantitative, analytical, data-driven place. So, that really helped. It still informs how I decide right now. It's no wonder that oftentimes I often find myself gravitating or working with ex-P&G people, because we sort of understand.
It's the same language.
Same thinking, so they know exactly. Or people with a brand management background, because we sort of understand each other. When I talk, they understand kaagad where I'm coming from. They know where the thinking is coming from. So sort of those two combination of both of those things work. And then moving forward, I think a lot of my exposure to the Go Negosyo mentors, because I used to start off there as a host actually, and I would attend all the events, and I just listen, and through osmosis I pick things up from people, and I started learning from them about that. And from Go Negosyo, I made a transition from being the host to a mentor, then to somebody who's getting awards as a result of and working together with them because of that one. Joe Mag of Potato Corner, of course, has been a mentor for me in the business. Really great understanding of business. I like his entrepreneurial thinking behind it. And also it's been very helpful so that my wife, because she's been part of the business as well, she's my co-founder in Mercato, pursued a Masters of Entrepreneurship in Ateneo. And her teachers, Jay Bernardo, Andy Ferreria, the late Tommy Lopez, all these guys were people who, through osmosis, I also learned a lot from them. In real estate, at least from an entrepreneurial thinking standpoint, I also learned a lot from Jerry Cho. It's actually my Nino. He's Pro Friends. He's the founder of Pro Friends, and so a lot of those different thinkings I've been able to bring into the business. And of course, from being on my show Bright Ideas, it was exponential learning in talking to different entrepreneurs and understanding their thinking processes.
How about globally? If you had a chance to to meet somebody and have like a one-on-one session with any entrepreneur in the world?
That one, because I keep on reading on different ones, so I'm not stuck on just
one.
On just one. I don't fanboy on one. I mean, I like Simon Sinek. I read his books. I like Tools of the Titans guy.
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. I like Tim Ferriss. You like Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
I like how Bill Gates thinks. So there's different things that you're picking up from different people, and I don't mind just sitting in lectures and just listening to them, but you're picking up from so many different things. But locally, Josiah Go is somebody you learn a lot from as well, and you realize that how much is also gained in terms of consolidating and coming up with new thinking as well. So, but it's really there's a lot of learning to be made from the outside, but there's also a lot of learning to be made from the inside.
Yeah.
From here,
from your own experience,
and from people over here, and then it just keeps it's additive na lang, and then it builds up from there.
One of the things I'm also very curious because you work with your wife, si Vanessa, you're co-founders and you've been working together. How is it? Because I also work with my wife. We co-founded Early Bird, and she's also helping me out with my branding company. So, like, how do you manage yung working with your spouse?
That's a loaded question. It's not easy. Number one, it's not easy to work with your spouse because it's often difficult to separate sometimes work from personal life, and sometimes it often comes butting heads together. So and to be honest, we've had to go through some counseling on how do you manage different things. And we've attended different lectures on how to this one. I think it's really just finding a way to respect each other as colleagues, and not husband wife, but also as colleagues in the business, that each opinion is respected, that you give as much value as the other person in the business, and the other thing also is that we choose where we work on in terms of strengths, diba? Like, if you're good at this, parang this is your territory, this is my territory, but we don't have to cross over. So she's very good at handling the HR, much better than in finance and operations than me. But I'm good at business development, marketing, strategy, and we built also naman a team.
Yeah.
We also have, kumbaga, our friend si Trina is our good. It's like our referee and coach at the same time. So that, and before that we had somebody like Trina on board who would help us, mediate also, so that things are more peaceful to do that one. And we also build a team so that we're not just it's not just us, me and her saying, oh, your idea is better, my idea is better, so it has a whole team who can think it through as well.
Okay, that's a very good advice. Okay, so I think we touched on it a little bit. But like, what's your typical day like? Because I'm sure people are curious, like when they see all these things that you're doing. Like, I'm sure like some people who are maybe they're starting out or they're trying to do a couple of things, trying to balance it. What's your typical day like, and how do you stay productive?
Okay. So oftentimes, the first thing that I do is that, and this is true. The first thing I do when I get up is usually it's my prayer time, and for prayer time it's usually the first thing I do is I watch on YouTube. I have, kasi nakasubscribe ako. It's the gospel for the day, so I get the gospel for the day, and then I have 4 to 5 commentaries of the gospel of that day. So you get to appreciate what the gospel is for that day, and you can get to reflect on it. At the same time, while I'm doing that one, I'm actually also exercising already at the time. So I have my regimen for exercise at the time. So I try to get that. If I have no early morning meeting, and that's what I do. And usually my calendar is planned out. Actually, it's planned out for almost a year in advance because I have hostings.
Yeah, correct.
So it's planned out a year in advance. And after that's done, I'll do several meetings na. So either it's a meeting in the daytime and then hosting at night. So that's really the schedule that's like. And then for meetings, there are of course your regular, say, Mancom type meetings or business type meetings. you set time aside for that one at the start of the week. So parang we try to finish all those things at the start of the week. But at the end of the week, these are more of the exploratory business development type meetings. Who can I meet? Who can I talk to? What can we collab on? Because that's how the business goes, diba? That's business growth. That's business maintenance. And then there's business growth naman, the other part. And then it's just a lot of meetings for me because I meet clients. Because I like it because sometimes I'm the client, or I mean somebody who's my supplier, which is great. So I always it always keeps you humble that I always have to have somebody I have to service.
Correct.
And the people have to service me at the same time. So I understand how it's like to be on both ends.
How much sleep do you get in a day?
I try as much as possible 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Because if I don't, I'll really get run down. I always try to get that's basically it. I mean, it's not a hard and fast, but that's my basic schedule for that one. And I as much as possible, if I can spend time if I can spend time with the kids or with my wife, that's what's key to me. That's why I have to give up writing, which I really love to do, because writing would be done on the weekends. Because work was on the weekdays, but writing. And the way that I wrote was different. It was humor writing, so in creative humor, creative nonfiction. So it wasn't a straight type writing that I would do, which would, in creative nonfiction takes a lot of thinking. I saw David Sedaris on Masterclass, one of the guys I really like when it comes to creative nonfiction writing. 12 to 14 to 30 times you re-edit. And for me, I had a deadline for the newspaper. I had to do my re-edits or rewriting 2 to 3 times. Because it was creative nonfiction writing, and that's how I thought of myself coming into the writing that I did over there. So it took a bit more time for that one. So I had to say, I love you, but I love my family more. So I have to park you. I have to park you
for now.
And do this one. So it's just picking and choosing lang.
Okay. So we're heading towards the end of the show. I like to ask all my guests the same 3 questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first question is, knowing everything you know now, all the experience you've gone through, all the learnings, if you had a chance to go back in time to when you began your career as an entrepreneur, on that exact moment when you said, okay, I'm gonna start it now, you left corporate na, and then you just had a short time, maybe like a minute to give advice to young RJ, what would you say?
I would say maybe choose your partners well, and then make sure that choose a good accountant at the very start. I mean, get your books in place, because everything else you'll learn. I mean, if you just look back, parang sabi ko, if those 2 things were very, very clear at the start, maybe things would be much easier moving forward in terms of life, because everything else you had to go through naman.
Correct.
All these experiences you had to go through. In fact, even choosing partners is something you learn, or how to decide partners. And the thing is, part you don't really regret what you did, because whatever you are as an entrepreneur right now is a result of the correct and the incorrect decisions you've made, because they're just all investments in the scheme of things in becoming a good in the future. But then if you can get a great accountant, great auditor at the very start, from the start, that for me is the nice one. And I think getting good partners from the start is good, and it's difficult. It's not it's not a rocket science to get partners, because you might disagree with your partner even if you think that you're both of the same values. But I mean, as much as possible, try to vet who comes aboard and likes your idea, spend time with them and see. Now I can say that because we've established what the business is, so we're able to bring in. We can do that, but at the very start, it's not that easy to do.
Yeah. Okay. The second question is, what else are you looking to accomplish over the next 10 years?
Next 10 years, really, if you based on the discussion, it's scaling the Mercato. I mean, that Vocus is really to help build small food business entrepreneurs. It's building the whole Mercato ecosystem. It's really expanding this ecosystem, not just here in the country, but also even to other similar geographies. It's a system which people can use not just here. It's a system people can use abroad. I'm not just building a restaurant. I'm not just building a food market. I'm not just building a food hall. It's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem, and the app is the whole thing. So how do we bring that forward over there? And the same thing is that I'm also building EnterPH will be built eventually. That we're an ecosystem for the growing these entrepreneurs. What more can we do to help? There should be a growth plan as to not just bringing in outsourcing people here, but how do we help them scale their businesses? How do we that's another thing we're looking at. Then for Easy Franchise, we want to become the one-stop shop. We want to help small businesses to scale up at the same time. So there's visions for all those different companies, and I'll be probably doing also. Actually, I have several other businesses in the pipeline,
Nice.
which are already naka-input na dito sa utak ko. They all fall over there.
Nice. So before I ask my final question, I just want to thank you again for your time and acknowledge you for the work that you do, not just through your businesses, but your advocacy of when you do your speaking through Go Negosyo, also helping educate and empower future entrepreneurs. And where can people follow you? Where can people follow?
Yeah, great. So I have a website, rjledesma.com. That's my professional website as a host and as a speaker. So if you'd like me to speak in your future events, just let me know. Drop me a line over there. You can also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm also there, and you can follow me on my Facebook page. I have a private page and I have a public page. So please feel free to follow me on either. For Mercato Centrale, it's www.mercatocentral.ph for our website. But we also got Facebook. Feel free to follow us there, and on Instagram and on Twitter. And for those who've been listening to this podcast here right now, if you have a yummy and innovative food concept and you'd like to see if it might have the potential to grow or to become popular, I'll give you a 1-month rent-free stay in Mercato Central. Specifically,
Nice.
if you say that you listen to Kendrick's podcast.
Nice.
All you have to do is you just have to go online, send us a message on Facebook and say that I listened to RJ's talk on Kendrick's podcast, and apply for our taste test. And if your food qualifies for through the taste test, then I'll give you that month-long rent-free stay
Rent-free.
in the market. But of course, your concept has to be a unique and innovative concept. It can't be another pizza, pasta, shawarma,
Yeah.
milk tea, potato fries. Give me something that's unique, a twist on a current fad or trend, and then let's take a look at what you have to offer. So that's for Mercato. If you are looking to franchise your business, or you're looking to look for a franchise that you can invest and have managed for you, you can visit our website, which is easyfranchise.com. And finally, for those who are abroad and looking forward to, let's say, opening up a business here in the Philippines, you can visit my website of EnterPH, www.enterph.com.
Nice. Okay, we'll link all those links and accounts on the show notes. And thank you for the offer, RJ, for the listeners. So that's 1 month free rent.
Yep.
For those of you who have an innovative food business that you want to enter Mercato with. So, final question, RJ. How do you want to be remembered?
Me, I want to be remembered as a good husband, a good father, a good son, and a good follower of Christ. That's all.
Nice, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, RJ.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the show on iTunes. It will help more people discover the show. You can also share a screen cap of the show on your social media accounts. Make sure to tag me and let me know which part of the episode you like or didn't like. All feedback is certainly welcome, so feel free to reach out to me on Instagram @KendrickCo to let me know what topics you'd like to be covered next and who you want to hear or learn from in future episodes. Until next time, do the work you want to see done, because life's too short to not be creating your life's work.